Gaz, did you just hear Stephen and Natalie singing along to that intro?
No, you know what? I thought I heard something. I thought I did.
There was definitely.
I can leave this video as quick as I joined it, mate. I can leave it as quick as I joined it.
What a show this is going to be. What a show this is going to be. Welcome along, guys. Thank you for joining All for United on another Lunchtime Live. I'm Ben, as ever, with the United Daily Podcast. Thank you for coming along, getting that live chat. And if you're on any other platform right now, youtube.com/All for United, come on over, use that live chat and get involved as we have a discussion. Today, it's all about the preview of Derby Day. It's another big one. We're off to the Etihad. Gaz, let me start with you before we come over and talk to our Sky Blues who have lovingly joined us today. What are your thoughts ahead of the game on Sunday?
I don't really know if you want me to answer that honestly, mate. No, genuinely, right? Like United, we've been so poor recently. There's absolutely no denying it. I feel like it was. I'm not trying to make excuses for us at the minute, but it was simultaneous with Paul Pogba getting injured, wasn't it? Like literally, as soon as Paul Pogba came off the pitch in that Everton game, we've been terrible since that, including the rest of that Everton game. And City, what do you want me to say about City? Like, what can I say about City? They've won 21 games on the bounce. Like, there's nothing left to say. Like, obviously, I'm worried about.
Say it again.
21 games. Yeah, I know. It's incredible, though. It's like, what can I say about that? Every single road points towards City absolutely smashing us this weekend. My only real saving grace here is that in these big games, let's face it, we've been very, very boring. And it's not just been us. We've sort of made the team that we face be very, very boring as well. City have seen that themselves. One of the worst games this season was the Manchester Derby earlier on. So that's making me think it's probably going to be a 0-0.
We know how to do a 0-0 in a big game, don't we? We've proved that in our last 7 or 8. It's ridiculous.
0-0, and I'm going to be celebrating it like a win. Like, yes, we've ended the streak. It's over. Yes.
But you know what, guys? What you just said there about their record, obviously, let's not forget, away from home, we are in some form at the moment. Again, it's some feat, of course, in all competitions to go 22 games unbeaten, but away from home, 22 games unbeaten. It's a record there that other clubs need to look at and will be wanting to break. And I'm sure, Natalie, City will be wanting to break United's record as much as United will be wanting to make City stumble a little bit on your quest for this title, where you're far ahead at the moment. You must be massively confident going into Sunday's game. What are your thoughts ahead of it?
I mean, to be fair, we're pretty confident going into every game at the minute. Although, I mean, to be fair, Stephen will be the same as me. And you still, because you've been a City fan your whole life, you still have that remembrance of when you were growing up, you know, and you still know, you know, remember what it felt like to be a City fan back then. And the nerves obviously do still kick in. But yeah, of course we want to beat yous. What a weird season though, right? Because, you know, you can hear like Gaz talking about like how bad you are at the minute. And you're second in the table, like. It's such a weird season, isn't it? At the minute, you know, but you're second. How are you feeling, guys, considering you are second in the table, but you're saying obviously you're playing really bad?
And feeling very fortunate, actually, that we're still second in the table, considering how we played recently. But at the end of the day, the rest of the league hasn't been that impressive either. We've seen Liverpool, what is it now, 5 home games on the bounce they've lost. Like, that's ridiculous that they're even sniffing around the top 4 with 5 home games losing in a row. So it's just one of them weird seasons, isn't it?
Yes. Do you know what happened yesterday as well? Liverpool officially now 43 points in their title, regaining the title quest the season after winning it. Moyes' United 45 points. They're officially doing worse than David Moyes' Manchester United side.
See, but I've seen a similar stat to that suggests that this season's Manchester United side aren't doing too much better than that David Moyes United side either. So it's just a really weird topsy-turvy season, isn't it?
Yeah, it's odd. It is odd, as you both stated. Stephen, what about you, mate? How are you feeling going into Sunday's game?
Same with Natalie. I'm nervous always, but I mean, I have to feel confident. I do feel like things have changed since the last time we played in the league when it was 0-0. The 2-0 in the semi-final was a lot more of, I would say, more of a realistic comparison between where the two sides are at the moment. Having said that, it's a derby. It's a derby, and I wouldn't be surprised if you are the neutralizers at the moment. You make everyone else crushingly boring as well. So there could be an element of that as well, you know, where we do get dragged down to that level. But we have played that many wins in a row. And me and Natalie were doing a show for City the other day, and we were chatting away. And the one thing I feel is that at the moment, if City drop points, whenever they drop points, I'm not going to moan too much because we've earned the right not to be perfect now by being so goddamn good for 21 games in a row. It's almost like I can't complain about a draw in a derby, if that makes sense. A loss would obviously hurt a little bit, but And it'd be annoying that it'd be you guys who did that, but it is going to happen. We're going to drop points at some point. And obviously football does this really weird, annoying thing of telling little stories. And if it was United giving everything, and if it, well, the way I see it anyway, if it guarantees Solskjaer another job for a bit, okay.
Wow.
So I wouldn't be too upset.
We've got two very confident City fans with us here. I feel like you put out a tweet saying that people going into this fight, one's got a machine gun, one's got the butter knife. I feel like we've got the butter knife right now, which is not where I want us to be. Tell these two why they need to be scared of this United side on Sunday and be overly confident, Gaz. Tell us.
Well, the only confidence that I can get for this game is doing the classic thing of looking at history and looking at last season, where obviously
that is all you have at the minute, isn't it, Gav? All United have is history.
I wouldn't necessarily call it like distant past history, just like last season, where obviously Ollie did get the better of Pep when he was playing this, really relying on his pace up front and really relying on counter-attacking football. And to be honest, I think it took Pep Guardiola, maybe Man City, a little bit by surprise this season. And we've already seen that last season. We've already seen this season that they're not exactly going to fall into the same trap against United. But that is the only thing giving me confidence that City are just going to go at us and really try and attack us, which I personally don't think they will do. But if they do that, then United will just try and hit them on the break. And I like the fact that players like Daniel James have been in okay form as well in recent games, because I think you can see him start this one.
It's Natalie just laughing at Daniel James.
Okay form.
Scored against you lot last season. It's like these are the players that can have an effect.
Good thing he's in okay form right now. Trembling over here.
Yeah, who won?
One thing I will say is like,
go on.
One thing I will say is like, this is genuinely not trying to be big top Bert and all that kind of stuff. But one reason I would be a bit concerned as a United fan, not because of the winning run, which obviously is terrifying, but we've had a bit of a break. You know, like it's weird. I found myself yesterday not having to make a video for once, because normally I'm doing like match reaction, preview, watch along, match reaction, and we've actually had a few days off. And it's not a massive break, but we played on Tuesday night, and now obviously it's Sunday. So this City side was already relatively fresh anyway, but they've got a bit of a break now as well. And you won't necessarily have to change 5 or 6 players again, which is obviously a luxury that we've got at the moment. But I do believe anyone who was involved in the other night that played well probably can play again as well. So, and also, I was fortunate enough as well, like alongside Natalie, to kind of be in the stadium against Wolves, because we would, and that was the best second half I've seen from a City side in a long time. Like that was City. Like when they you know what I mean with Michael Jordan, when he's like, and I took that personally. Like when Wolves scored, honestly, like City, like the attitude change was ridiculous. Yeah. It was genuinely like astonishingly brutal. You could sense it. You could sense it from the players, and there was a spark in the step, and like they went up another level. So like they were all over a good Wolves side, and that like last 20 minutes in particular after they scored, it was that made me feel really confident, because you could sense that there was no lack of it's almost like you can get tired, not get tired of being so good, but you can become complacent, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And I didn't sense any of that at all in that second half against Wolves. If anything, actually, they looked even more determined than ever to carry on that winning run. And that, for me, is why normally I'm very typical City and nervous. And I am nervous, but I saw enough to allay some of those fears ahead of the weekend to know that this City side, even though obviously there's a very good chance United could win, because United and we've got quality players who can do something like that out of nowhere. But I know the attitude and the focus will be absolutely top class, and that makes me feel really comfortable, because I've saw enough of it against Wolves and in the previous 20 odd games to know that this side really means business at the moment, and particularly ahead of the derby.
I was going to say, Stephen, it's interesting that you mentioned freshness, because I think that's something that United have looked just sort of like they haven't got any freshness at all. You look at some of our better players, and you notice players when they're not up to scratch and their fitness isn't great and they look overplayed, they start to do the basics wrong. And they can't seem to just even do the little things that makes a footballer a professional footballer. And I think we saw that with Marcus Rashford. We couldn't have had a worse game midweek going into this one, I don't think. We were awful. We couldn't create anything. The players that found a confidence, they didn't look fresh. Of course, obviously, we didn't have the luxury to have 2 weeks off over Christmas, but that's a different conversation.
But who did? Who did?
I think
was it what, 6 days? It 6 days actually.
Was it 10 days without a game?
No, it literally wasn't. It literally wasn't. It's just a myth that Klopp spread around. Genuine nonsense.
Oh, we believe everything Klopp says over here, as do VAR. So don't worry about that. We battled Klopp's corner.
Let's stop letting Klopp sort of influence people's opinions like this, because he's done the same against United as well this season with the old penalty myth where at no point this season have Man United been getting more penalties than every other team in the league. You know, Leicester were consistently getting more penalties than Man United as well. So, and
Don't
since
you just love a
made
football
them
conspiracy though. I love a football conspiracy.
I do
Whenever
when
a
it's
manager
not
comes out, oh,
I do when it's not coming from managers, or when it is coming from managers. I'm not saying this is what's happened. I'm not trying to be all tinfoil hat here, and I hope this isn't the case. But I just really hope that referees aren't influenced by things that are said by managers. And if referees are influenced by managers, I'm not even blaming the manager for that, because Sir Alex Ferguson was the king of this. It's the referee's fault. Like, the referee should be able to go into a match, empty everything out of his head from outside sources and concentrate on the match. But I mean, the stats suggest that, I mean, maybe it's just evening itself out and laws of averages and stuff like that. But United have not been getting many decisions at all recently.
Well, Ben, just to clarify, I just Googled it, Ben. We played on the Sunday, and then we had...
I did as well.
It's the Monday after, that makes sense. So, you know, literally,
A
there's like
working
7
week.
days.
yeah,
A working week. We had a working week. It's barely 2 weeks that Klopp made everyone believe. It was like, for once, actually, we were in Europe for 1 week. That's it, you know, like... Yeah, we have played more games than anyone else in the league as well.
Constantly, yeah. We've played 2 games a week, every week, with the exception of 1 week.
Who cares? Who cares? That whether it was a week off, whether it was 2 weeks
we need to
off.
make as many excuses as possible going into this one, in case it does all go to shit. We've got City fans in the live chat claiming it'd be 6-1 again. Screw it. You had 10 days off and you're fresher. Right, Natalie.
Oh, come on. You guys are not going to score against us.
Oh, crikey, Natalie. Come on. I hope, for your sake, Natalie, I hope it's not Daniel James who does score against you, because then that would be nicely clipped up.
Well, he is in okay form, so...
I'll also just say this. The last time that you did beat us 6-1, we actually scored the best goal of that game, and that's all that matters, let's face it.
Yeah, the last time you beat us 6-1, I was there as well, so I think that was the unlucky charm on the day. Let me tell you, just quickly, Natalie, let me come over to you, talking about freshness, and Stephen hit on confidence there. How confident is this City team at the moment? You say that they come off the back of such a brilliant second half performance against Wolves. Additionally, on top of that, the league now, it doesn't look like you guys are touchable up there. You've just run away with it since you've gone on this amazing run. So as a fan, having confidence in those players on the pitch, are you in a completely different position now than you were a couple of months ago when you was going through that little rocky patch of form? You had a few players out.
Yeah, like, I'm not even gonna lie to you all. When we played West Brom at home last December, and it was a 0-0 draw, and I was presenting City's coverage that day, and I said to Andy Morrison, one of former City player, I said, "Oh, Andy, we're not going to win the league this year, are we?" And he was like, "Calm down, Natalie, calm down. There's a long way to go." So, God, yeah, and because we play so many. I'm saying that was in December. Now we're just in March, and and everything has changed. But we're just playing. The football we are playing is so good. It's so beautiful. The idea that I've heard people on Twitter saying it's boring, like, you can't watch a City game and think it's boring, because the football is so good. Like, and Stephen mentioned the second half in that Wolves game. There was passages of play that were the best I've seen us in years. Some of our players are so on fire at the minute. Mahrez's performance in that Wolves game,
amazing,
as good as I've seen him in years. So we're really good. We're playing really good football. We've got a really good collective team. Everybody's pulling their weight. It's the only downside, obviously, is that there's not a stadium full of fans to cue the jokes to be seeing this.
I love. Do you know what? I think it's absolutely brilliant that we've already hit on trying to joke about the fact that you had a little period off over Christmas, 7 days, 6 days, whatever. And Gaz then has already brought out a fan joke. We've done all the cliches now, Gaz. I don't know what we're going to do moving forward now.
We see the oil prices went up yesterday as well.
Yeah, well, Stephen, thank you for joining in. Do you want a red shirt?
Full house line done.
Guys, Natalie, I know you've got to rush off at about 5:02. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to quickly, obviously, me and Gaz will have the chat in a second. But between you and Stephen, what selection dilemmas does Pep have this weekend? Are there any question marks around the players, around the team, how you might approach the game? How do you think, Stephen? I don't know if you want to start and then pass over to Natalie. How are you expecting City to line up, but also B, what conundrums have you got ahead of the game?
sound so arrogant, but our selection dilemmas is that we got too many good players. Genuinely, it's just it's just true at the moment. Like Zinchenko's had a great season, and at the same time, Walker in the past couple of games he's playing right back with Cancelo doing the inverted fullback thing. He's been brilliant. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does play Kyle Walker again because his pace and his experience and he was particularly notably vocal as well in the second half against Wolves. He was like, it was funny hearing him going like, "Don't give the fucking ball away," screaming and all this kind of stuff. But he's a proper leader. So maybe Zinchenko. Who'd you start out with? Diaz, Stones, and Laporte. All three of them have been absolutely excellent. Laporte was fantastic the other day, and genuinely, it's a great selection of centre backs there. And then we've got to find a way to like does Aguero even get on the pitch? And that sounds crazy, but like Jesus was fantastic the other night. But that also therefore means Foden probably sits out, or Gundogan, Bernardo, De Bruyne playing for a couple of spaces. Fernandinho usually could be good in a big game like this, but Rodri's been brilliant. So it's a very hard team to select at the moment. I mean, I've got a feeling there's going to be I don't know, people like. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for the same forward line as against Wolves because it was so good. Even though he's rotated a lot recently, I mean, that means Foden on the bench. It means Aguero on the bench. But Sterling, Morris, and Jesus the other day, they were movement. They were brilliant. They were energy. That would also then mean Gundogan misses out because Gundogan didn't start the other day and KDB played and Bernardo played. I don't know. It could be that he does something like strange and go for a false nine and not play a striker. But after Jesus' performances, I honestly don't know. I've got to do my match preview after this as well. And I just don't know what it's going to be because it's just so hard to choose at the moment because you can play any combination of that forward line. It'd be deserving because put it this way, one of Foden, De Bruyne, Bernardo or Gundogan's probably going to miss out. And I just don't know who it's going to be.
Before I pass over to Natalie, Stephen, do you think part of that decision-making might be around actually United's back four as well? Let's face it, in recent times, Sterling hasn't had a good battle against Wan-Bissaka, has he? Wan-Bissaka seems to win that 9 times out of 10. Luke Shaw's in good form as well at the moment. But then also, if we've got a Victor Lindelof and Maguire, so to speak, centre-back partnership, maybe Sterling's pace, I don't know if he's played often as a false nine, but as a false nine might make a difference there.
It cuts in an awful lot, yeah.
What do you think?
The Wan-Bissaka's been good against him, but he's been very good against him actually. But maybe you'll go for Foden on the left because Foden's had a good season on the left, and he's a little bit different. A little bit different to what Sterling will bring. And I wouldn't be surprised if Foden's probably more nuanced game going forward is effective. But then Wan-Bissaka did say his most difficult opponent has been Sterling because Sterling at the moment is pure dynamism. Like he just never stops, absolutely never stops. So we're chatting to once again reference that game because I'm still on cloud 9 for being there, but Nader Manua, ex-Man City player, was chatting away and he was saying what makes Sterling so hard to defend against is he's just relentless. Like he never stops making that running behind, never stops asking for the ball, never stops going at you. And even if it doesn't come off for the first 9 times, he only needs to get in once, and we will continue to make those passes. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to Sterling, given his leadership the other day and given his form, even though Wan-Bissaka's been good against him, just because there will be a gap between Maguire and Lindelof and the fullbacks. We will find that space if it's there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for that anyway. But he could decide to go for Foden. He could decide to go Foden, who's more likely to drift in field and kind of get away from Wan-Bissaka or something like that. But yeah, you're right in terms of the fullbacks may dictate it. Having said that, that's probably why I think actually we'll play Cancelo on the left, because I don't think Wan-Bissaka offers much going forward personally as a fullback. I don't think that's controversial. I think that's fair. And I think Cancelo getting forward, he's very good at whipping the ball in. And he's genuinely been brilliant with his crosses. So maybe that's an option. They'll think, well, we don't have to worry too much about that side of the pitch, touch wood and vary, because you don't have a bombarding fullback. Whereas Luke Shaw on the other side, better getting forward. So Kyle Walker probably will be more suited to that side.
Interesting, Natalie. I'll come over to you.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen put it perfectly. The biggest selection problems that we have is that everybody's playing so good. And like I mentioned Mahrez before, he played so well that he's almost undroppable at the minute. But like Stephen mentioned, all of the other players there, that means that they aren't playing because he is. For me, I agree with Stephen. I think the front three will stay the same for the game. For me, our biggest problem at the minute is in the centre of midfield, because Gundogan is in the form of his life. He's absolutely incredible at the minute. He didn't start at the game against Wolves, but then you're never going to drop Kevin De Bruyne, right? Kevin De Bruyne is going to start, right? Isn't he? Can you believe there's a Kevin De Bruyne is going to start, but then Bernardo Silva's been in such good form. Rodri is starting to become a real kind of unsung hero as well in the position that he plays. But then, as Stephen said, Fernandinho, that's my dog. He's called Sergio, clearly.
Obviously. Sergio.
obviously, hey mate. Fernandinho has been great in derby games, and Steve and I were saying the other night, he wouldn't surprise either of us if he came into the team for the derby. So that midfield position I think is the biggest chance of rotating, and has got the most question marks around it. But overall, it's a wonderful position to be in, where every one of your players in your squad is having pretty much the season of their lives, with the I have to say, well, not even with the exception of Sergio Aguero. That's not fair because he's been injured. Sergio Aguero has played something like 3 games since last June. We are led to believe that he is 100% fit now. So the idea that we're thinking that Sergio Aguero likely will not start in a derby game should demonstrate to you how good everybody else is playing. So yeah, I generally love seeing the team sheet come out at the minute. We generally have no idea. It's always different. Then we spend 5 minutes at the start of the game working out who's playing where. But yes, I'm looking forward to it. Every game, every City game at the minute is a light in a dark time in our lives.
Well, thanks for putting me in a dark space. I appreciate that, Natalie. I'm confident going into this weekend now. Cheers for that, Nat. Appreciate it.
I'm really sorry, guys. I have to go because I've got a serious work call at 1:00.
Give us a score prediction quickly, Natalie.
A prediction?
Yeah, it's a quick score prediction.
I think 2-0 City.
Okay, cool. So United 2-0 win.
But,
Perfect,
thanks
Natalie.
for having me. You both appear to be very, and I know you are, Gaz, level-headed United fans.
No, I'm not.
Nah.
You are, Gaz. You're not one of those nutters that we see on Twitter that are repping your club. So
yeah, I'm too negative. I think we're crap.
Thank you, Natalie.
You should have been a blue, guys. You should have been a blue. You would have suited it.
And then Stephen will represent us well here. He does not need any backup. So yeah.
Natalie, it's been lovely. Thank you. Best of luck on your meeting, and we'll hopefully have you join us again soon. Thank you, Nat. Take care, Nat. Gaz, United. How do we caveat that? I personally think going into this game for United, it's actually quite an important area that you, Stephen and Nassi, have hit on about your midfield options. United at the moment, when it comes to midfield options, we have absolutely nothing, more or less. It's a really weird time of the season where people are picking up knocks and people looking injured, and our midfielders aren't in great form. And the way we play, we're just not moving the ball quick enough through the middle of the park. And actually, we look too defensive at times for a team with a high line. That's what's really frustrating, is we seem to have started playing this really high line, yet Nemanja Matic and Fred could cuddle Lindelof. They're that close to them the whole game. So I think for United, I think the midfield options, Gaz, I don't think Pogba's going to be fit.
No.
I don't think he'll play Matic. It's going to be Fred and McTominay, isn't it?
It's got to be, and that's not necessarily a good thing either. Like Nemanja Matic, I really don't get what he offers anymore at Manchester United. I've not got it for quite a while, to be honest. As for Fred, I don't get how you can have a footballer who his only positive traits are off the ball. Like he's good off the ball. Don't get me wrong. Like he will get himself about the pitch. He will be a nuisance. But as soon as you get that man on the ball, you know that he's capable of losing it very, very quickly. And not in the same way that Bruno Fernandes loses the ball, because as Stephen spoke a little bit earlier about Raheem Sterling, he'll try it 10 times and 9 times it won't come off, but the one time it does, will be effective. It's the same with Bruno Fernandes. I think the problem with him recently, and it has been going on for quite a while really now with Bruno Fernandes, is that he's knackered. And I don't think he quite realises that he's knackered. And he just wants to play every game because he's that type of player. I think that Ollie does need to give him a break at some point. Obviously not going to be in this one, but I do have a few concerns for Bruno, to be honest, Ben. And I'd be interested to see what you think of it, because I think it stretches back further from before this poor run that we've been on for the last, whatever it's been, 5 or 6 weeks. I think it goes back further than that. And in the games where Pogba scored the winner for us, was it West Ham and Burnley? I think it was West Ham and Burnley where Pogba came up clutch. And that was when Pogba was really man of the match in them games. And he turned up because Bruno wasn't. And that was sort of something that Man United had, where if Bruno doesn't turn up, everyone was calling us a one-man team. Well, we weren't, because the likes of Pogba would show up and grab the game by the scruff of the neck. Obviously, he's out, so we've lost that option. So if Bruno is marked out the game or he's struggling a little bit, you've got to rely elsewhere. And for me, the closest thing that we've got to a world-class player apart from those two is Marcus Rashford. And again, he looks absolutely shattered right now. And even the basics, what you were saying before, Ben, is first touch, everything just doesn't seem right. And with Marcus Rashford, I feel like for him to really take the next step, it's all about the mental side of the game and the instincts and knowing what to do as soon as you get the ball and doing it as quick as possible. Whereas at the minute, I feel like him and quite a lot of other United players actually, they need too much time to think about what they're doing. And against City, when you know how City are going to play against you, that's not going to work out.
Yeah, I always wonder with Rashford as. Sorry, man.
Yeah, go on, carry on.
I'm just too polite. I always think with Rashford, and I'm not just trying to. Once again, I'm not trying to do like the whole Bert thing, but I do wonder. Like, if you look at like Rashford's a quality player, but you look at the coaches that that Sterling's had to help improve him compared to the coach. With all due respect to Solskjaer, that Rashford, like Solskjaer, he looks like a pretty good coach overall, and I think he gets a lot out of the players because the connection with United, But I don't think he gets that much out of the players at the same time. Personally, I do wonder if he has the nuance to. We see so many talented young English forwards, and we do in this game, but they never seem to, smooth off those rough edges. And I always wonder if there's. It's a case of just like they need the right person to help them take the next step, and they can only get so far themselves. And I think we underplay sometimes the role of a coach, and Guardiola has been absolutely instrumental in Sterling's improvement overall and his effectiveness. And he's obviously you can get a certain level to yourself, but you do need a coach to help you. And like Rashford, I do wonder, looking from the outside in, if he'd been in this City side in the way that Sterling's playing, would Rashford be the one scoring 30 goals a season as well? And I actually probably think he would be. I genuinely think he would be. And I do wonder if Rashford and certain these players, they're probably good enough with the right coach, to do a lot better than they are doing. And I'm not just trying to stick in the knife at Solskjaer, because I think he's all right, but I don't think he's elite level coach. I don't think he can do what I know Liverpool are absolutely bombing at the moment, but I do think Klopp is a very good coach fundamentally. He's very emotionally led, but I think he's a good coach. And I don't think Solskjaer still can do long term what Guardiola or someone like Klopp can do to a player personally. And I do wonder if that's Rashford's big problem still, just more plateauing, reaching a certain level, then needing someone who can do something special around him to go, look, you bits of your game that are inconsistent, here's how to get rid of them. And instead of being 15 to 20, you'll be 30 goals a season. And you know how to be effective as who you are. That's why I wonder with Rashford and people like him, because you need a world-class coach to help you take the next step. You just do, in my opinion.
It's interesting, like you say, there, obviously, Ollie's name was mentioned because he's our manager, but also, as you know, and as Pep would say, you're no manager without the team behind you as well. And I think United at the moment, that's potentially the area where we're struggling slightly. I think our downfalls are actually coming from the coaching side of the game more than it is the manager. I don't mind Ollie being a man manager and being terrific at that, but I think when it comes to what we're doing on the training ground and how these players are improving, I don't necessarily believe that we've got the most amazing backroom there to complement Ollie as a manager.
I think that's on Solskjaer personally. I mean, I'm sorry, but I think the great managers are also great coaches. You may disagree there, but I still think they are. I think it's easy to go, he hasn't got the right coaches. But it's his job to get the right coaches.
Different era, Stephen. Sir Alex Ferguson never took a training session.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty certain he hired the right coaches, right? I'm pretty certain it was his
what I'm trying to say,
oversee.
That's the point.
Solskjaer, but then Solskjaer, if you can't get the right coaches around him, that's fundamentally his problem as a man manager. I would say it's the same result, end result regardless. Yeah. He hasn't got the foresight to see that the coaching isn't right. At least, that's what I would argue. And
I think that.
I get that. I just want to quickly hit on Rashford because I know obviously if we spoke about Ollie, I think we talk all day about Ollie, because I actually think when it comes to opinions and bits and pieces on Ollie, I think you can say too good and too bad every single time. But I think on Rashford, I think you're right. I think what hasn't helped. Yeah, I think
that's what it always is, isn't it? It's always, sorry to interrupt, but once again, too good, too bad. It's normally in the middle, just not bad.
Of course. Yeah, of course. I think with Rashford, for me, it's the way he's been moved from pillar to post constantly. I also don't think it helps him that he's played with two really niggling injuries over the past couple of seasons. He had that back injury that was not good for him. He had that shoulder injury that's still apparently killing him. Apparently he needs to have an operation after Euros. I don't know how true that is, but still, that doesn't help. But I still think when it comes down to his development as a footballer, I think you've hit it right there. My problem is with Rashford is after lockdown, we saw him take up positions like he was a conventional winger, and we're all surprised at how much he was hugging that touchline for that period of games that we played really well in between lockdown and the end of the season, where we ended up finishing third and we went on a really, really good run. And it worked then with Martial up top, Greenwood on the right, Bruno playing in around. Everyone had loads of confidence. We're scoring goals, we're playing well, and we're playing this Ollie counter-attacking football. I sort of feel like at the end of last season, Ollie went, that's not sustainable. We now need to start playing football. We started the season with this ridiculously high line, and we just couldn't cope with it. We got battered by Spurs, we got beaten by Palace, we were struggling against Brighton, and we stepped back a couple of yards, and then Bruno started, just hitting a 0 point, Gaz, Bruno started to play quite well again. We were running at the defences, so Rashford was playing well. Greenwood, was it Greenwood or was it James at that point was out on the right hand side? It might have been Greenwood, I can't remember. But either all, we were playing quite nice football at that point. Recently, we've gone back to having that high line, and there's just no space. Bruno struggling to find space. Rashford hasn't got any room to run at players and get at players. And he's been shoehorned out to the right. He's been playing on the left. Sometimes he's been played as a number 9. I think a player like Rashford, and I think what Sterling's benefited from, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, Stephen, but certainly from what I've seen of him, whenever I've seen him, he's been quite stable. He's had some stability in that City side. He's more often than not on that left-hand side. But that's where Pep's more or less trusted him for the majority
Sterling's
of his
best
career.
form, and I'm sorry to be contrarian in City's fans' eyes, the 17, 18, 19 season, Sterling was often playing the right with Sané on the left, So the point is, but you're right about stability and trust and confidence in the shape. And I guess what Sterling and our wingers benefit from is that they know if they make those runs, they will be found by those runs. Because Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva, they're metronomic. They know their roles. They know exactly what they need to do. And that comes down to intense understanding and intense football intelligence, which filters down from our genuinely world-class coach. We can turn around and say it's all money, but he's an absolute structural machine, Guardiola. He just sets over exactly where players need to be at all times, and he's fixing problems. You can visibly see this season him fixing problems on the pitch. Like at half-time against Liverpool, they were very much in that game. And they noticed Trent Alexander-Arnold getting loads of freedom. They shifted it around entirely at half-time, nullified out the game. And that's kind of like, I know that's not an exceptionally unique kind of thing to do, but he's doing that more because he's alert and alive to it, and because he has the capability to do it. And Sterling definitely benefits from a structure, but then Sterling is part of that structure too. Sterling is one of those players who will diligently do his job. He knows that in the same way that he knows if he makes a run, he'll get the ball. The players know that he will make the run, if that makes sense. So everyone is literally where they need to be. And I saw, it's not much. I'm not going to be one of those fans who goes, "Oh my God, players are arguing." But I saw that clip, and you've probably seen it as United fans, of like Rashford and Maguire bitching at each other and stuff like that on the thing. But that's to me, there's nothing wrong with that, but that to me shows frustration. That shows to me a lack of conviction on the pitch of what they're doing. And it's easy to microanalyze those kind of things. But I do think frustrated players, they shrug a little bit, or they won't make the right run, or they won't be where they would. Because in football at this elite level, it's so funny because I've seen City fans go, "Oh, Stones and Rodri are slow or whatever," and all of a sudden they look fast, and that they're not faster or slower. It's just conviction. Players always look so much faster when they're confident. It's weird. People were saying last year Sterling looked slow. And Sterling looking slow is ridiculous. The only reason he looked slow is because he was doubting himself. And I think conviction in your shape and your thing, it makes players confident, makes them sharp, and makes them be where they need to be. And Sterling's benefit from that.
That point on that, Sterling, when Maguire puts that ball, although it's a hopeful ball, again, you've got to go back to phase of play. I don't know if you saw it. When Maguire hits that ball, Sterling's onside. Rashford was trudging back, as you said, because of where his confidence was, where he currently wasn't there. Before that, he tried to take on 2 or 3 players, lost the ball every time, lost the ball in 4 or 5 different successions of passes. And he's trudging back, and that's.
And this is from a City fan, by the way. You could never, ever in a million years claim that Rashford doesn't care. Obviously he does. He supports it, and just as I know you're saying that, but the point is I'm making, if he obviously cares about the team and he obviously gives it all, and he's obviously an emotional, decent human being, then there's something fundamentally wrong. There has to be, because if Rashford is getting frustrated and kind of throwing out, and I know obviously players do it, and I've seen Kevin De Bruyne throw his arms up and all that kind of stuff. So it isn't a particularly United thing; it's just a human thing. But the point I'm taking is there's obviously no question of desire from Rashford, more a question of confidence or frustration or all that kind of stuff, and that stuff spreads like rot. It really does. It gets around, and you have to nip that at the bud, and you have to find new ideas. And United, for me, looking the outside in, you are, and you can, I guess, and maybe you don't agree. I don't know what you guys think individually, but you are a collection of very good players, and you could probably try and kid yourselves that you're not. I'm not saying you two are doing that, but some United fans I know definitely do that. But you are a squad of very good footballers that, and in my opinion, some other coaches maybe would get more out of, and I do think that's the thing. I think you can nasal gate, but I think it's as simple as that. And I think United at the moment are underperforming and underachieving based on the players that they've got.
I just can't really see that, mate. I know you've had a lot of criticisms against Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well, which I don't necessarily agree with too much. I don't get how you can say this United team with the likes of Victor Lindelof, Fred, Martial starting most games are a team that are underachieving on paper.
How many
Anthony
teams do you think they
Martial-
would start in the Premier League for other sides? How many teams do you could start them? I would guarantee the vast majority. And bear in mind, City won the league.
Fred
100 points.
Lindelof and Martial.
Otamendi.
Or are you on about the majority of the rest of the United?
No, those players, they would start for most teams in the Premier League. Most teams, I would guarantee that. And bear in mind, we won 100 points with Otamendi at centre-back. You know what I mean? Fabian Delph turned into a left-back for us. Zinchenko, 1 million attacking midfielder, playing left-back for us. So there are problem solvings, and you don't need those 3 players to be... You just need them to be stable and hope for magic from the others. I know that they won't always be stable, but we've seen players that have less ability than some of those players. And I know Martial's a moody little sulker and all that kind of stuff, but he's still got an awful lot of quality to his game, in my opinion. And he has seen him do some magic things. Maybe motivation is a lack of problem there, but I don't think the players are as bad as you think they are. I feel like maybe some of them don't have the right focus, maybe, but I just don't. And maybe Lindelof, but I don't think. Yeah, but I don't think they're that bad. And I genuinely think if Lindelof was at Everton, I think they'd play him. I think if Lindelof was, but then
Steve,
the point is,
you just said it then. For us, you've got to look at it like you've got to look at these United players, and you've got to look at this United side, and you've got to look at the teams around you, and you've got to do that at the start of the season more than now. So, for instance, going into this season with our squad of players, how many of those would have got into the City side, into the Liverpool side? I still would have argued potentially in defence, Harry Maguire potentially would have. I know Guardiola was a fan, and at that point, Stones hadn't emerged and come to fruition like he is now doing with Diaz, and you had the Porter out injured, so potentially Maguire. At that point, we weren't expecting Shaw to have the season he was going to have. Wan-Bissaka was still much of an unknown quality, more bigged up by United fans than any other rival fans. Then you look at your midfield, then you look at Bruno. Of course, I think any team has Bruno. And the
just
rest
want to say, sorry, Ben, but all these players that you're listing now have improved under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well. Like, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has made all of these players into better footballers.
Yeah, but then again, that's the point I'm trying to make now. Even if we went and said how many of these players get into other teams around us, well, maybe Van Dijk being out injured, you might have another one in that Liverpool defence. The fact that Trent's not having maybe City, so I just think it's hard in the middle of a season to sort of suggest what players would fit into other sides around you. But you use the example Everton.
My point is that you don't have to have a squad full of absolute top class players to be successful.
No,
I know because people would say oh, who would have said Zinchenko would be nullifying Salah? Literally, he's a 20-year-old attacking midfielder that we got that went on loan. Didn't even get a game at PSV. Couldn't play for PSV.
You need players who
You've got to remember you're talking to United fans here, where we've seen in the past United go in with midfields made up of defenders and end up absolutely blowing the other team away. Like we've won leagues with the likes of John O'Shea starting plenty of the games, and Darren Fletcher, who are great because of the manager, I suppose.
Manager
because of the
balance.
Manager, and because
balance as well.
But that balance comes from the manager. It does, in my opinion. And I think, and obviously, you guys don't want to slag off Solskjaer. I get it. I'm not trying to slag him off. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just don't think he's a very good one either. That's my personal opinion. And I feel like United. I just think he's all right, and I think he'll always be all right with you guys. But if you want to take the next step, he's not an elite level coach. I don't think he inspires fervor and imagination and excitement. I don't think he does. I don't think the players are like, oh my god, this guy's an absolute beast. I think elite managers, they have an aura around them of like, you go to war for them. And like, I'm not saying this to be a Burton City fan. I'm saying it because I genuinely believe it's true. And like, I think he's all right. I think he's okay, but I think he's a little bit small time. Yeah.
What managers have that vibe then, like currently in the Premier League? Obviously Pep, but the likes of Jurgen Klopp and Jose Mourinho, who are both having much worse seasons than Ole.
Well, I mean, I don't think, what it's worth, my opinion on Jose is that he's a relative busted flush. I believe that to be true. And I feel like his aura was built around invincibility. And as soon as he lost that at Chelsea that season, he was no longer the special one. I think people wouldn't go to war for him anymore. I genuinely believe he lost it that year. As soon as people realized he was like, I'm special. And as soon as you built your whole thing around being special, players will follow you. But if it turns like actually you have that moment where you can actually collapse and all that kind of stuff, and the players go, well, you're not that special. And as soon as one player said that in the squad, you've lost the dressing room if that is your thing. Whereas Guardiola, he's brilliant, but he'd be like, I make mistakes. And basically Guardiola described himself as someone who never made mistakes. I think he lost, not Guardiola, sorry, Mourinho. But anyway, in terms of actual coaches, I mean, there isn't that many world-class coaches around. I don't think that's uncontroversial. I think that's probably fair. I mean, I don't think there's another Guardiola personally. I think he sees the game in a different way. That's my genuine opinion. I think people like, Messi, Xavi, Philip Lahm and all that would tell you exactly the same thing. But I mean, you want someone who was exciting and who was structured and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know who would suit United. Pochettino is a miles better coach in my opinion.
Let me quickly rephrase that question then, Stephen. You mentioned then about Pep Guardiola and what you've just said. He, for whatever reason, retires at the end of the season. Who takes over from him at City? Who's got that charisma?
There's not City. I've said this, and you can go looking for tweets. This is as good as it gets. I genuinely believe that to be true. And I've accepted that as soon as Guardiola leaves, there's a drop-off. We may get some residual success. I think we will get a couple of years of like the structure works and we get some residual success. And it could be that another manager comes out of nowhere and gets really good. But I honestly don't think... to me, in my head, and you might disagree or whatever, I don't mind, but to me, it's like Barcelona replacing Messi or United, I don't know, replacing Ferguson. I was
going to say
it is that hard in my opinion, and I think Guardiola is what makes Guardiola a freak. And yes, he's brilliant at spending money. He is. I can't deny that. He signs players. We spent a lot of money. I can't deny that. But we're very good at it because of the structure and the board, and we're literally very good at it. You turn around and give people loads of money, but you have to know how to spend that money. You have to have a structure. And City have got Soriano, who's like an insane businessman. He genuinely is. He's like, we've got Chicky Bregenstein, who's director of football, who understands football, played for Barcelona, and he obviously has great success at Barcelona as well. And they're good friends. They trust each other. We've got a really good scouting network around the world. And we've got Guardiola, who's a man who demands insane standards. There's clips of when he was training the City side that won the Centurions and the other Formidables, all the stupid titles. But either way, there was trips of him saying on the training ground going, "You're tired. Fuck you." You're like, look, that's what he was like with the players that had won this many games in a row, because he's such an absolute like football obsessive to the point where he doesn't let the players underperform. Because if you don't, I mean, obviously he's human, he'll make mistakes, and I'm not going to say he's perfect, but I do think like the very best are obsessed with winning in the way that Ferguson was, in the way that Roy Keane was, in the way that your class of 92, where they're all absolute top class professionals and obsessed. And for me, I honestly believe that after Quekos, we'll get a very good manager, but we'll win titles, but in the way that we won a title under Mancini and Pellegrini. We'll win it every now and then. But that 95 plus points things, we've normalized that, but that ain't normal. We know from 20 years of the Premier League that ain't normal, and City will start to drop because the standards that he demands, in my opinion, are unique to maybe a few managers in world football. And unless another Guardiola appears, Guardiola is like, I mean, people will turn around and say it's just money. Money's a big part of it. Guardiola said it himself, but he is also an insanely intelligent coach. He's an insanely intelligent coach, and players go to war with him. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Vincent Kompany. And Vincent Kompany speaks 5 languages. He's a ridiculously respected footballer, and he was talking about how he felt like he'd gone to university when Guardiola turned up. And he's not just saying that for the sake of it. I know he isn't. I believe that he was overwhelmed by the intensity and the levels from Pellegrini, from Mancini to another level entirely. So I'm not saying you have to get Guardiola, but I do think there are coaches personally with that. Someone like Pochettino, for example, is a better coach in my opinion. And
the point I was trying to make, Stephen, is obviously you made those points about Ollie and this squad, and obviously United being United and where Ollie's currently at with United as a coach, etc. We've got to remember where we've come from and where we are right now. So I think if you put yourself in your shoes that Pep Guardiola is your Sir Alex, right? Just put it that way, right? You've had this sustained success with him, an elite coach that no one else can touch in world football right now. Okay. Yeah. Then you come down off that peg. Our board have made some horrendous decisions over the years when they've brought managers in, the players they've signed for those managers. I still think that potentially we've had player by player better squads than we have now, but I think we've got a better group now, if that makes any sense. I feel like we're getting better and we're getting towards, and the reason why I mentioned balance, quite famously, we know how much money Guardiola in the past, and you mentioned about him spend money on that defence, getting that defensive balance right. You're potentially still even a defender away from that. I still think this side needs investments. I'm not saying the players we've got are bad, but we need different types of players in different areas to really get that balance right within the squad. And that's also why I don't disagree with the Van der Beek signing and him being warmed in the way he is. I still think he can play a role in this United squad and will become a good player for Manchester United potentially. Whether you agree with him being man-managed right or not is completely up to you. But the point I'm trying to make is I still think Ollie's very early on in his journey in getting this team right, getting this squad right, and even himself as a coach, really finding out where he is at. Let's not go away from the facts here, Stephen. Like, and whether you criticise Ollie for this or United for this, and Gaz, you can jump in on this. We've taken the manager of mould and we've brought him to Manchester United as a caretaker manager. He done all right. He got given the job. And now he is the guy in charge of Manchester United. He is the manager of Manchester United. Now, whether we want to argue whether that manager like phrase or, so to speak, role has changed when it comes to being a coach or a manager or however that's addressed in the club. And whether we'll get someone as the manager of Manchester United ever again who had the reins like Sir Alex did, I don't think so. I think that type of manager in world football is completely gone now. I don't think anyone can have that much control over the club. But I just don't think that us as United fans, realistically, we can expect Ollie to be anywhere near or even get this side anywhere near the standard of a manager like Pep Guardiola has put your City side, which, by the way, you have fantastic players. Let me just quickly let Gaz jump in, Stephen, then you can comment on that.
No, it's just interesting that you said that you could never see sort of Ollie getting to Pep's level, which is absolutely fair enough. But, and as Stephen has alluded to then, City are better in the transfer market.
Could be wrong.
No, you are right.
Can I just rephrase what I was saying there? Can I just quickly rephrase what I was saying there? I meant that there was no way that this season he would be able to get these players to a level that Pep Guardiola has got your players to. That's the point.
Come back to me in a minute, by the way, because I've got some stats I want to read out to you in a minute. So come back to me in a minute, okay?
Go on, yeah.
Just the situation that what I think is, what would City do if they were in the position that United were in this season, which they sort of were last season? Well, they went out and they got Ruben Diaz, however, £67 million or whatever it was. I'm not having a go at you for that, by the way. Like, I in some ways wish that United behaved a little bit more like Man City in the transfer market. There are certain constraints on that surrounding, obviously, the culture of the club, and maybe we put a little bit more into our identity of putting academy players into the team. But that doesn't need to stop just because we go out and buy 3 players who go straight into the first 11. We've already got plenty of academy graduates currently in the team and currently on the bench that we can still put into the squad and still keep that Manchester United ethos, but also spend money as well. Now, my worry is that Manchester United are less likely to go out and spend that amount of money on a player like Ruben Diaz, because he's a player that when Man City signed, he wasn't this big, massive name where everyone was like, yes, we've signed Ruben Diaz. This is the guy that's going to fix our defence. I don't think anyone was ever 100%.
Some City fans were excited about that, by the way. A lot of City fans were like, oh, we wanted Koulibaly,
exactly.
We wanted Jules Koundé, but a lot of City fans were like, oh, he's they were calling Ruben Diaz, you know.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. Ever the intellectuals are Manchester City fans. But honestly, when going out and signing someone like Ruben Diaz, Manchester United would not do that because he's not this big marketable figure which is going to sell millions and billions of shirts all around the world. It's just not going to happen. So Man United won't go for a player like that, even though that type of player would be absolutely perfect for our team right now. And that's where my worry comes to United.
Alex Tellers and Van der Beek are probably about the same level of profile as Ruben Diaz, you know. So, and Ahmad Diallo, he spent 30 million on, is a kid. He's literally like, no one's even heard of him until United were linked to him. So it's like, it's not like once again, it comes down to a lack of strategy. I do agree. I mean, my interesting thing is how much you perceive you've improved. Like, I'm genuinely curious because I've got my theory is that United haven't improved that much. And this is controversial. Maybe the football's got more exciting. And I think it might have done. But Steve, I don't think you've improved barely at all.
It's not just
I've got the stats
football.
to show.
It's not just the football. This is the only real stat that matters is that this is the first time Manchester United... Oh, well, we'll see how the rest of the season goes, but this is the first time that United have had consecutive top 4 finishes since Fergie retired. Like, that's got to be the bare minimum achievement at Man United, and everything else comes along with that.
For what it's worth, like, basically, this is the stats I was looking at it, like... My opinion, like at the time, was that United's success is built on. It started, January when you're top of the league. I felt that United, that was a false position because I feel like the reason they were there is that City and Liverpool had dropped off at that point, by their usual standards. And I looked at it. So this is from a couple of days, yesterday actually, 51 points. You'd be third last season, 51 points, and 28 off first, 28 points. 50, and in the 18th season before, you'd be 7th, 51 points, 6th the season before, and 6th the season before. So your points totals in other seasons behind City and Liverpool, you'd be miles off the pace, not just of City, of other teams as well. So my point really was that I think the relative success of being second now, in my opinion, is based off everyone else massively dropping their standards as well, which then does beg the question, have United really improved? Or has everyone else just kind of lost their mind a little bit? So I mean, the points total, say in a normal year, you would be nowhere near second.
I understand what you're saying. I completely get what you're saying. And actually, that's a fair point you've made there. I actually slightly maybe disagree with you here, Gaz. I don't think our football's changed relatively at all. I think Ollie's tried different things, but I don't think that I don't think we've improved massively. But I think one thing that we are now is more stable. For instance, I don't see us dropping out of the top four. I think we'll still get a top four finish, although I do worry that the mentality within the club isn't to go for a top two finish this year, which in hindsight doesn't really mean much. We won't celebrate it, but I still want that ruthlessness of us to get it done. Obviously, massively disappointed we went out of the Champions League. That should never have happened. And that is obviously a dampener on the season. But I also think you've got to look at it from this way as well, Stephen. When it comes to, and I know it's not the league, but when it comes to cup competitions, we're going on runs and we're getting there. I do think that if Ollie does win a trophy this season, it shows a sign of improvement. If we can finish again, top 3, top 2, again, it shows a sign of improvement. I know what you're saying in terms of other teams dropping off, and I completely appreciate that. But I think that's when you'll be able to see the better clubs come to light. For instance, look at City now with the lead you are gaining at the top. You're not dropping off. That's how much quality you've got over the rest of the teams within this league, potentially, when you're firing on all cylinders and they are not. I do agree with you in what you say in terms of the league. I can't argue against it. But the one thing I would say is that, again, the league table, although you say there when it comes to points, it also doesn't lie in terms of the fact that, look, if we were 7th right now, of course there would be loads of turmoil. We'd be shouting it out, and it would not be good enough for Manchester United. But the fact that we've been able to sustain our way to get into that top 2, and we are still there, even though we're playing poorly, teams around us are playing poorly and dropping points. I don't think we can argue against it. Do you know what I mean?
You're right. It doesn't lie. I guess the point is, are you second because you've been better than everyone else, or just not quite as bad as everyone else? Is the point I would make there.
Same thing.
And like.
Yeah, I think it's
but at the same time, but it doesn't mean progression. One thing doesn't mean progression, you know, like, and
no.
Like,
if all the other teams have gone, if all the other teams have gone that way and we've stayed that like that, I understand City are flying away with it.
My point, I guess, is that the average points overall, from based on Premier League history, is, and I think things always reset back to normal, is that you'd be nowhere near the top. So I know it's all relative. I know it's all relative, but like, and I get what your point making, Gaz. But I
it's an abnormal season. Let's face it.
And what I'm getting at is your points total can point still to massive inconsistency, and that massive inconsistency in other years would still have you pretty much miles off the pace. So what I'm saying is that you can look at overall trends, and I don't think United have really changed from year on year. I think you've still just the kind of the same team bobbing along. It just so happens that the other teams have imploded around you, and Spurs have actually genuinely imploded, and Arsenal have literally imploded to point us. And I mean, I might be wrong, and I may be seeing a thing, but I can sit around and say I've got no skin in this game. Obviously, I'm a City fan and all that kind of stuff. But like, I honestly believe, I'm not saying Solskjaer is the biggest problem, by the way, but I do think he's just one of many problems that United have got. Many, and I do think usually the biggest impact you can have on a team is the one person who can have the biggest impact on a team is the manager. It is, like, in terms of it. But then again, maybe you're screwed because you haven't got the right director of football and you haven't got the right structure. And I actually think the biggest for failure of your success right now, biggest cause of your failure right now, unfortunately, it's that guy you absolutely idolise, Ferguson, because he left a massive vacuum because he did everything himself. So you never really had a structure to step into that thing, unfortunately. When Ferguson left, you didn't have a coaching structure, you didn't have a scouting structure because he was the big man. And it's great during that time. But when it's gone, you're left with a shell of a club, and you were a shell. And that's not even a controversial statement. It's literally I remember speaking to a football scout, right? And this is genuinely true story. A scout who represents a player who's won an awful lot of trophies. And he was saying that United had never even watched James Maddison once when he went to Leicester. This is a guy who was on the best players in the Championship, and that was because they had no scouting structure. And I know this is true. I literally know this is true for fact. And that was the same because United didn't even bother watching players from the Championship at that time when Maddison was going. Certain players because they didn't have the structure, and that comes down to a lack of organisation from a whole structure. I don't give a shit. Carry on. You probably got better at that now, by the way. But I don't care if United carry on being that way. But I do think you've got massive fundamental problems. I don't think your coach is good enough personally to reach the highest level. I don't think your structure as a board is good enough personally. And I don't want it to change. I'm saying this because I believe it's true. And I'm not saying this just to try and win points either. I genuinely think it's true.
No, that's fair enough. And I think a lot of United fans would echo your points. And I do agree with some of the things that you've said. I just think that, and I'll come back to this, Stephen. And again, we need to wrap up in a second, but I'll come back to this. And Gaz, I don't know if you want to just hit a little bit on progression as well. City win the league this year, but they don't win it by as many points as they have done in previous years. Or potentially they win the league this year on less points than when they finished second last year. Do you give a shit? I don't think you do. I think when it comes down to it at the end of the season, if you are in a better position, if you've managed to add trophies here, there and everywhere, I think you end up happier, and you see that as progression, no matter where
I
you
would
are.
say though, by the way, mate.
I get the points. I get what you were trying to say.
You don't give a shit when you won the league, as opposed to you do give a shit. See, if you did second last year, by the way, and we gave a shit and we weren't happy because we were massively off our standards. So you don't give a shit when you've won something. I think that's fair to say, but I think you do give a shit if the perception around the club is a little bit negative and you're struggling. Even if you're limping to second, you're miles behind. It's still like, we've still got lots of problems to solve.
But for us, we're still further ahead than we were the season before, and I think at United, that's where expectation levels have dropped slightly, which is sad because we're Manchester United.
I think it's dropped for yourselves as well, by the sounds of it, because I don't think you're that further ahead. I just think you are. I think it's been masked.
Go on, Gaz. Sorry.
You say that expectation levels have dropped among United fans. I think that United have tried so many times over the last 8 years to sort of get a new manager in who's going to bring that sort of instant success. And we've sort of realised when we gave Ollie the job full time that instant success is not going to be a thing we're going to be able to achieve. We need to have big changes around the club, not just in terms of the in terms of the league positions or the points tally, but in terms of the culture around the club as well. And I think that's one of the reasons Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was brought in. I feel like when we bring in a new manager now, and particularly when we brought in Ollie, it has to be a sort of 3 full season plan. Your first season is all about getting United back into the top 4. Your second season is about improving on the season before. So that obviously means bare minimum, you've got to have a top 4 finish. But to add a trophy alongside that, or to actually carry on developing young players and developing the style of football, that is also okay. But it's then when you go into your third season as Man United manager, that's when United fans, I think we should have high expectations. We really should. And we shouldn't lower our expectations.
Next season, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly. That's next season. Manchester United should be challenging for the league title next season. And if we're not, then it's just not good enough. It's that simple. It's like if we didn't finish top 4 this season, you'd have to get rid of the manager.
Ben, Gaz, honest question. Do you think you will?
No.
Challenge next year or win it?
No.
Yeah.
No, because we need to go out this summer and sign at the bare minimum two great world-class players who fit straight into your starting 11. And then alongside that, you need 2 slightly less fashionable players as well to go straight into the starting 11. Manchester United's board isn't going to do that. We're going to let Solskjaer hang out to dry and probably won't even finish top 4 next season and then sack him. And then we start again with another 3-year plan. And it's just chaos, mate.
Yeah, with the manager that apparently everyone thought would be perfect comes to the club no longer available in Pochettino. So it's like, then who do you take next? It's literally a roll of the dice. Do you know what? I would love to continue the conversation on that, but we're just about to hit an hour. So actually, I want to get over to score predictions and how we think the game's going to go. So Gaz, let me start with you. Give Red some optimism. How's the game going to go? What's the full-time score going to be?
Okay,
and don't
optimism, guys. Buckle up your seatbelts. Get ready for this. 0-0.
Okay. I mean, to be honest, I can see it. That's what's really annoying. Stephen,
it's not realistic. It's weird with City. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 1-1, 0-0, but also I wouldn't be surprised if City win 3-0. I genuinely wouldn't be, because at the moment we will play better than you. I'm almost certain in this game. I've got to say a City victory. It'd be silly not to. It would genuinely be silly not to, given everything. And we're at home as well, which will obviously, and it doesn't make a massive difference. You're going a mile away. You know what I mean? So, but the players are making is like there's an element of comfortability and all that kind of stuff. And so I am going to say I'm going to say 2-0. I reckon. I think 2-0, but then I wouldn't be surprised if it's a late goal. So the best thing that can happen for me, I wouldn't be surprised if at one point, if it's 1-0 and then you start pressing forward or something. We score a second, then you press forward and we pull away and win 3 or 4-1 or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised with that either.
I genuinely think.
By the way, can I just say, there's a guy in your comments called Jarvis Cocker. Great name, by the way. But he said, Stephen, why do you support City? It's a soulless team with no fans, history, integrity. What's the attraction for the City? Don't get it. Jarvis, it's called being a Manchester City fan. I'm 35 years old. I started supporting City as a kid and I stick with my club through thick and thin. Maybe you should try that, pal. Anyway,
Jarvis,
please
be nice to us,
didn't it?
Jarvis, please, Jarvis.
Well, it's just this idea that it's soulless. He doesn't understand what football's really about. Going to Main Road and watching it when I was an 8-year-old and getting goosebumps and watching City play and be terrible, but then seeing City go down there, come back up. My success feels a damn sight better than Jarvis's. I guarantee you. So,
Steve, this is the problem. I know we're at the end of the podcast, but this is the problem with City fans. Why do you care what other fans have to say about you? Why do you care if other fans don't appreciate just how good Man City are? It doesn't matter. Like being hated. United fans love being hated. You should love it.
What bugs me? Like I know I like it, but because we don't like that. I don't like being hated because I'm a good person. So like, what I'll say is like, I don't like
it. Football. This is what you got to get.
What I will say is like, But calling Man City soulless is like, it's a total misunderstanding of everything Man City have been about when I've grown up. And like the idea that these City fans are soulless is just nonsense. I can't take that. The idea is like, it's genuinely nonsense because like we have been through some shit and we're still here. Like we're genuinely still here. So I know it's just a troll and all that kind of stuff, but like, I know I like the idea. I can take I can laugh at the no history stuff, but the soulless thing is like, nah, it's nonsense. Actually nonsense.
He even made an oil money joke for us earlier on, to be fair to Stephen. So, do you know what I mean? Let's get in on it. Stephen's lovely. Guys, give him some respect. He's been really well. I've loved speaking to you today, Stephen, about United's issues as well. I think it's always nice to get an outside.
That's right, by the way. I shouldn't get triggered, but, it's Derby week and I'm allowed to.
It's easy to get triggered. I love getting triggered. Do you know what? I agree with what you said and what some people have said in the live chat as well. I can see this either being some kind of low-scoring draw or City at some point putting away with it, which would be a disaster for United. I didn't think it could get much worse in terms of performance after Palace. We've got to turn up. We've got to hit the game. To be honest, I don't even care if we start fast or not against City. I don't think it matters. City are going to have a lot of the ball. City are going to try and play through us. I actually think patience is probably the key word and probably the key factor for United going into this game. And I think there will be openings. There will be opportunities for our front 3-4, sure, to get forward and to create chances. But then this is my worry. Being clinical, getting a shot away and creating those chances, which we have just been shite at recently. And I don't get it. I don't know why. For instance, if that opportunity happens again for Scott McTominay, that happened in the last minute against Chelsea, where that's an easy pass. It's an easy ball for Scott McTominay. He would play that ball 9 times out of 10. He got it wrong in that game. We need to make sure that end conviction is there against City because we're not going to get too many chances and we need to be clinical. So, look, I'll be optimistic. I'll go for a 1-0 United. Why not? I've got a badge on my... Oh, no, it's that side. No, it's that side. I've got a badge on my chest. Why not be a little bit optimistic? But I think realistically, it's either going to be a 0-0 or City might end up really making some kind of statement, which will be very unhappy and I'll cry into my cornflakes. But either way, Stephen, thank you for coming on. That was wicked, mate. Thank you for that. Gaz, did you enjoy that?
Not really, mate, no. Absolutely dreading it. I'd rather just go to bed and just wake up on Sunday night and just not go on social media for another week because I know what's coming.
Well, honestly, I'm not just saying this, but don't be surprised if you get something. Just don't, because football's weird. I know it's not likely, but don't be surprised.
Stephen's predicting a Man United win secretly. Guys, thank you for joining us. Subscribe to All for United. Get on the United Daily. Thank you to Natalie for coming on earlier on as well. Thank you for you guys joining me in the live chat. I promise I'll have my proper setup. As I said to the guys before, I've got boxes like all over there because we've just moved house for next week and everything will be all fun and dandy. Guys, have a great weekend. Fingers crossed for a United win on Sunday, and let's let Stephen sing us out in the outro like he did the intro. Ciao for now, guys. Stay safe.
See you later.